Today's lesson is going to focus primarily on measures of center, but we are going to take a quick look at samples and population. So a population, when we talk about that, it's what is considered an entire group of people or objects. A sample, then, is a piece of that population that is used to make an inference or conclusion about a population. So the thing that we look at here when we're looking at samples is, are these samples biased or are they unbiased? An unbiased sample is a sample that is definitely representative of the population and selected at random and is large enough. Those are the two real key pieces, the random and the large. A biased sample then is something that's not considered representative of the population. So one or more parts are favored over others. So it's like saying if you want to take a survey and you decide that you are going to see how many people like to listen to music when they study or when they do something like that, and you say, all right, well, I'm gonna take a sample of a lunchroom. So, and I'm gonna take a survey of 100 kids in the lunchroom. That's gonna be unbiased because it's large enough and random and it represents the population. Another one, if you said, all right, I'm gonna see if kids like to listen to music while they do their work or study, and you take a survey of just kids that are in the band or kids that are in the orchestra, that's going to be biased because generally, yes, if they are playing an instrument, they like music. So we look at samples and we look at them as being either biased or unbiased. And unbiased means they have to be random and they have to be large enough. The real piece of today's lesson is going to focus on measures of center, measures of central tendency. These types of things measure the center of a data set. So these examples of your measures of center that we're going to use are mean, median, and mode. Mean, when you find your mean, it is the sum of the data divided by the number of data values. So it's like the average. Your median is that middle value when the data is ordered from least to greatest. Your mode is the one that occurs the most often. You have something called an outlier. This can be a data value that is much greater or much less than the other values in a data set. An outlier can skew the data. So it can affect the data, and it's going to affect some of the measures of center more than other measures of center. So in this first one, it says, an amusement park hires students for the summer. Hourly wages are given at the table. Find the measures of central tendency of the hourly wages. So this is saying I want you to find the mean, the median, the mode. So to find the mean, you take all your data pieces, so everything that's in there, add them up, divide by how many they are. To find your median, you take the numbers, you list them in order from least to greatest, and you find that middle value. To find your mode, you take the one that occurs most often. So take a second, pause the video, find your mean, your median, your mode. So here you find your mean is $7.35, $7.35. Your median is $7.62, and your mode is $7.25. So what this means is that on average, students will make $7.35. It says in number 2, it says identify the outlier in the student's hourly wages. How does the outlier affect the mean, median, and mode? So in this one, your outlier here is going to be this value right here, this $3.87. That's the outlier because it is far off of all the other numbers. They're centrally located around $7 and change. So the outlier, in order to see how it affects your mean, median, mode, if you took the outlier out, that's going to determine how it's going to affect these things. So what I want you to do is pause the video again, take the outlier out, take that $3.87 out, and then find your mean, your median, and your mode. So pause it and try that. You'll find that your mean went up to $7.85. Your median was at about $7.99. Your mode didn't change when you took that outlier out. So $7.85 for your mean is more representative of the data. When you have an outlier, the mean is skewed the most. It's going to affect that value the most. When you have the outlier, a great representation of the data would be to use your median. If you don't have an outlier, you definitely want to use your mean. That represents that center value where everything basically is the best. But when you have those outliers, it skews that data. So it's going to change the mean the most. So the next piece here says that you've got what's called a line plot here, a dot plot. So what this means is number of books read in a week. So 2 people read 1 book, 1 person read 2 books, 1 person read 3, 3 people read 4, so on and so forth. So this says, I want you to find the measures of central tendency of the data set. You can pause the video and you can find those and then check in just a second. So you can check your mean, your median, your mode for that one. The next one talks about finding the mean or finding a value of x when you are given the mean and you're given the median. So for these 2 problems, you're going to have to think about what the mean actually is in order to be able to solve it, and also what the median actually is in order to solve it. So when you think about your mean, if you don't want a spoiler alert, pause the video. When you think about your mean, you think about it's the sum of all the data points divided by how many data points there are. So do exactly that to figure this out. So if your mean is 20, that means that 20 has to equal the sum of all the data points divided by how many there are. So 6 plus 22 plus x plus 7 plus 36 divided by how many there are. Well, there's 5 data points. So take a couple minutes and I want you to solve this. You'll find out that x's value is going to be 29. The median is the same thing. The median is a center point in a data set. So if you know your median is 28, that means that 16, 24, x, and 48. That means that in here, that median, that middle value has to be 28. So in order to do that, you're going to take 24 and x. Again, no spoiler alert, pause it. Divide it by 2. And that's that value, this value in here divided by 2 is going to equal that 28. So take a second and solve it. X is going to be 32. So the last one here is statistician records the winning scores of 5 basketball teams. Identify your outlier. Which measure of central tendency would be the most affected by removing the outlier? And then calculate the mean and median with and without the outlier. For this one, you can pause the video and you can solve those, and then unpause and the answers will appear. So you can see that your mean is affected quite a bit when with and without your outlier. Your median is not affected as much, and that's generally what happens. When you have the outlier, your median is the best representation of your measure of center of the data. When you have that outlier, or when you do not have an outlier, your mean is definitely the best representation of that data set.